Now, if you've been following the Ukraine war, then you must have heard of a city called Soledar. It's a small salt mining city 10 to 11 kilometers from the city of Bakhmut, where intense fighting is continuously going on since the last few months, and both Ukrainian and Russian forces are heavily entangled in those cities. And if you've heard of Soledar, then you would have definitely heard of the Wagner Group, which is going to be the prime topic of my video today. And we're going to look at how the vines of power in the hallowed halls of the Kremlin sort of weave their evil tentacles down into the battlefield, and how that takes shape, and how that affects a piece of land in Europe, which is again come under enemy occupation. So, the Wagner Group. Let's talk about it. Let's understand what it is and what it does. So the Wagner Group was founded by this guy called Dmitry Utkin. Dmitry Utkin was a GRU commander. He worked for the military intelligence branch of the Russian army. And when he retired, he essentially started working as a mercenary in Syria. This was around 2013. And the Syrian civil war was in full swing. He started working as a mercenary supporting Bashar al-Assad's troops, and after fighting there in Syria for a few months, he returned back to Russia just when the Donbass conflict of 2014 was beginning. And when he returned back to Russia, he quickly formed a group called the Wagner Group. Now, the story goes that Dmitry Utkin's code name when he was in the GRU was Wagner, because he was a huge Richard Wagner fan, the classical composer, the composer that composed The Ride of the Valkyrie, and the composer that is, for lack of a better word, let's say associated with the Third Reich and the Nazi ideology of the Third Reich. And it is no secret that Dmitry Utkin himself is a white supremacist, and he sort of bears a lot of insignias and symbols and tattoos of the Third Reich symbols on his body. It's a little ironical that, the guy who founded the Wagner Group, who's actually fighting in Ukraine or against Ukraine, is fighting for the cause of denazification of Ukraine, where actually they are the ones who are neo-Nazis in a way. Anyway, it's kind of a strange connection there. But carrying on, our man Dmitry Utkin is in Donbass now. He's fighting in Donbass. He is working with the separatists in the Donbass region around 2014. And then he sort of ups and returns back to Syria around 2015, where still the civil war is raging. As we know, it was quite a long conflict, and Russia had quite a, let's say, entangled sort of history with that conflict as well. So, our man returns to Syria, and this is around 2015-ish, and this is where a Russian oligarch by the name of Yevgeny Prigozhin enters the picture. And again, this is reportedly, nobody can really confirm the timeline other than these guys themselves. It's very hard to validate when things exactly happen, but that's the best guess here. And that's when the Wagner Group started growing as an organization, as an enterprise. They started providing a lot of security services for governmental resources and plants and industries for Bashar al-Assad's regime in Syria, and also started their operations in various places in Africa, like the Central African Republic, Sudan, Libya, Mozambique, and even in South America. So they truly became a global mercenary group, taking up security jobs, guarding jobs, helping militias, helping guerrilla fighters, helping local warlords, all around these sort of weak countries where there are power vacuums, essentially. And according to various media reports, these guys don't really care too much about human rights. They go in there, they do their job, and they're ruthless about it. So let's not make the mistake that these are nice guys who are going to help out people and villages and things like that. No. That's not what they're going there for. They're going there for their self-interest, and they get paid in kind by essentially resource allocation. So in all of these countries that I named, so like for example in CAR, which is Central African Republic, they have access to gold mines, diamond mines, uranium mines. In Libya, they have crude oil deals and, energy interests in various different drilling platforms. In, for example, in Sudan, they have a nuclear power contract and military equipment export. And these are all according to a Foreign Policy Research Institute blog that I am using as a reference. And I'll link that blog in the description for you to check out if you are so inclined. So essentially, from 2015 to the present day is where Wagner Group has essentially ballooned as an international private mercenary organization. And this is where things get a bit interesting, because the Wagner Group is now funded by Yevgeny Prigozhin, and in 2022, with the Russian invasion in Ukraine, they have suddenly spotted an opportunity to become more than just a private, militia, mercenary group that sort of fights around the world, at the behest of Putin's Russia, and takes care of myriad problems around the globe. They want to actually try and stake their political claim on Kremlin and on Russia. So essentially what has happened is a lot of videos and a lot of claims and counterclaims have come out during the war and towards the fag end of 2022, especially with the fighting in and around Bakhmut, and especially in the city of Soledar, where Yevgeny Prigozhin and the Wagner Group actually claimed that they took control of the city. It was not the Russian army that actually claimed that. It was the Wagner Group that claimed that we have taken the city. And then it took the Russian government a couple of days and the Russian army official Telegram channel a couple of days to actually come out and say that yes, they are in control of large parts of the city. And again, it's tricky when they say they are in control of the city. That does not mean that there isn't fighting going on. There is still active fighting going on, I'm sure, in chunks of Soledar as well. But they are in overwhelmingly, controlling the city. So Yevgeny Prigozhin, who is the funder of this entire operation, essentially is known as Putin's chef. The story goes that he met Putin in one of his restaurants, and Putin had come there for a meal, and that's where they sort of met, and from there their friendship grew, and Putin would used to bring his guests and foreign dignitaries and all kinds of people to Yevgeny Prigozhin's various restaurants. And that's how they sort of formed a friendship. And essentially Wagner Group allowed Putin plausible deniability, if nothing else, right? So that's essentially how it works, that it's not the army of the state that is conducting the operations in places where they're not supposed to be there, but it is a private militia organization. And that's essentially the use of private military organizations around the globe. And Russia is no exception, actually. There are private military contractors that were famous during the war in Afghanistan, during Iraq. Blackwater is quite a famous private military contractor that came into a lot of disrepute during the Iraq conflict. So mercenary groups have always existed in 21st century and 20th century battlefields, but this particular group is a bit unusual in their cruelty, because these guys are have been accused of human rights violation, torture, murder, various different things. So they have cases against them for murdering journalists who were investigating them. They have cases of torturing people for security purposes in various African as well as Middle Eastern countries. And in Ukraine war currently, the pattern is actually quite sordid, if you think about it, because it's just undiscriminate shelling on public infrastructure to break the morale of the population and thus sort of give up, which is sort of the overall strategy that Russia is employing in this war. So this group is unbearably cruel, and they are at the present moment somewhere around, estimates are from 20,000 to 40,000 troops in Ukraine, right? So that's actually quite a large amount of soldiers fighting on any battlefield, and in Europe that's a lot anyways. So before I end this, I want to leave you with stories that would sort of give you a real reflection of how brutal these guys really are. One of them is about a defector from there who walked across during the invasion of Kiev, I believe, and he apparently gave a lot of interviews about how the conditions in the Russian army was and how the Wagner Group operated to the Ukrainians. He agreed to be a part of prisoner exchange programs between Ukraine and Russia, and these are things that keep on happening every now and then between the Ukrainians and the Russians across the line of battlefield. And during that prisoner transfer, he was kidnapped and brutally murdered by somebody bashing his head in, essentially. And that video was released in the Russian Telegram channels supporting the Wagner Group, and Yevgeny Prigozhin, the guy who funds this Wagner Group and owns the Wagner Group, essentially commented on it, saying as much that the direction of the footage is really good and no animals were harmed in the shooting of this film, which is, it just betrays a very calm sociopathic tendency in these people, which is quite horrifying to witness sometimes when you look at it from afar. But of course, it's very normal to them. And obviously, this is the reality that a lot of people who hold power in Russia live in, essentially. So there we go. So that has been my take on the Wagner Group. Hope you were able to understand this terrifying yet fascinating organization and what it does for Putin, and now its role in the war in Ukraine. Hopefully this would lead you to develop a deeper interest in this group and sort of do your own research if you want to. Check the link in the descriptions if you want to read more. And if you enjoyed this, kindly give me a subscribe and share this with your friends and family. And thank you very much. I'll catch you in the next one.